Stolen Girls, the untold story of Leesburg Stockade girls. In July 1963, at the height of the civil rights movement, teenager Shirley Reese joined a peaceful protest in Americus, Georgia, with other young black girls. Together, these beautiful girls, they walked to the Martin Theater and they tried to buy movie tickets at the window designated for white customers only. The police were called, according to Miss Reese, and they were arrested. These girls range in ages between 12 to 15 at that time. Several of the girls were rounded up and taken to a stockade in Leesburg, Georgia, 23 miles outside of town. They would remain in jail for nearly 60 days. To their parents and loved ones, the girls simply vanished. It would be weeks before anyone would learn what happened to them. Now 75, Ms. Reese returned to the stockade with CNN to mark the 60th anniversary and share her story. A story that I am hearing for the first time. Therefore, I am sharing it with you as well. Maybe you have no knowledge of this story, and knowledge is power. We have to know our past in order to know our future. Now, she recalls how filthy the very small cell was. The stockade was surrounded by thick woods, and in the summer heat, it was extremely humid in the cell. The girls were kept there without beds, without working shower, or a working toilet. They could not see each other at night, she recalled. It would be very dark in the cell, and they could only hear sounds of each other. Now, Americus at that time was a small town and had a history of racism in the 1960s. During the civil rights movement, children often protested in the town because it was thought that they were less likely to face retaliation. Therefore, there were civil rights groups like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which organized youth-led marches across the South to demand an end to segregation. Adults often didn't participate a lot because they had to work and take care of their families, said another one of the girls, Carol Burning. And if the parents got involved, they would risk losing their jobs and their ability to take care of their families. And at that time, it was the children who took the front line. Miss Carol recalled she was 13 at that time. This is her in this photo. She told CNN she remembers demanding an explanation from the officer who led her away. When asked if the officers ever explained why they were detained, she gestured to her brown skin. Arrested and spent almost 60 days in jail simply for the color of your skin. Now, the girls at that time had no idea where they were. For almost 60 days, the girls were unable to bathe, forced to remain in clothes they were wearing when they were arrested. Ms. Reese stated they were fed hamburgers, and those hamburgers were delivered daily by a stranger. They used the hamburger wrapping for toilet paper. They started to pray together because they had no idea if they would ever get out of there. So they began to pray together, pray individually, as well as cry individually, they recall. Now, in this particular photo you see here, you see that Miss Shirley Reese is holding the bars and smiling. At that time, she was going through this devastating time in her life. And as a young girl, she was smiling. A photographer came by the cell, and she got the photographer's attention to take her photo. Now, these photos were published later on in the newspaper and Jet magazine at that time. And because of the release of these photos, these girls were eventually released. Amid outcry, the girls were freed in September of 1963, and they were never charged with a crime because there was no crime. The crime was the color of their skin and purchasing movie tickets in a booth designated for white customers only. Now, Miss Shirley Reese, pictured here in this photo at 75. For years, many of the girls refused to speak about their experience. Some of the girls and their families remained in Americus, according to Miss Reese, and they kept their heads down to avoid future issues, problems, or retaliation. After being released, Miss Reese said she struggled to process all that had happened to her. It was just like she didn't exist, she stated. Decades later, she found the strength she needed to continue on, and she would go on to earn a master's degree as well as her PhD. Bless her soul for what she experienced and having the courage to continue on with her education. An education she stated that her mother wanted her to have. She said that the time she spent in Stockade should have made her bitter, but instead it made her better, and it allowed her to continue on and make her life better. And all of these girls featured here, beautiful girls, did nothing wrong. Simply walk into the movie theater to purchase tickets as kids do to have a good time. And they were simply arrested because of the color of their skin.